Overseas territories in the Foreign Office in London, and this is my first visit to Angola.
And ask you, seeing as your first visit, what have been some of your impressions of the island from what you have seen so far?
Well, I think I've been very struck by how beautiful some of the beaches are. I haven't had a chance to go on any of the beaches, but I've seen as I've driven around. The natural environment is very beautiful, very striking. I think it's also striking that it's relatively quiet and less developed than particularly St Martin, where I came from, where there was much more traffic, it was busier, and so it's a very beautiful environment. I think, as with any community, there are issues that people are worked up about, there are issues that people want to talk about, and a key part of my visit is to come and to let people tell me these things that they're concerned about. I don't always have the answers. This is my first visit, and so I don't think it would be right that I should come here with a sort of slick presentation of everything. I'm here to learn, I'm here to listen.
Precisely what's your remit?
So within the Foreign Office, we are the sort of docking point, as it were, the point within the British government that has primary responsibilities for the overseas technologies, and for the overseas territories, forgive me. In each case, of course, in the inhabited territories, we have governors in place, but also we have uninhabited territories. So we deal with all of the sorts of day-to-day issues that the governor's offices deal with with the territory governments.
You say that there are issues that are of concern to the territories and
Yeah.
as opposed to the British government.
Yeah.
What are some of them that you would wish to articulate?
Well, the key issue at the moment for Anguilla and for most countries in the world is economic growth, trying to find that elusive economic growth. We've all been through a global slowdown in the economy. We've been through banking crises in many parts of the world, and there's been a big readjustment as to how is the world economy going to work. And that has left Anguilla, I know, with many years of recession. It's left many countries in a similar position of struggling to find ways to grow the economy, to get employment rising, to get new investment coming. And that's a challenge. It's a competitive business. Everybody's trying to attract investors. There aren't as many investors around as there used to be. So a particular focus for my visit this time has been to talk to people in the business community and government, but also, of course, ordinary people, the ordinary citizens and the school children, about their concerns about economic growth and about job opportunities.
Yes, but this is something that has been ongoing for some time. This isn't just now. Is there anything that the British government can do practically that can make a difference?
Well, we're trying. We're trying to find ways to help grow the economy. We're trying to find ways to raise awareness in the business community, the international business community, of the opportunities in the overseas territories. As you'll appreciate, the territories are small, and so it's not the sort of thing that major business groups, major investors would necessarily be aware of the opportunities. And so one of the things that we're planning for next month is to, because of course the City of London has a lot of international investors and a lot of international business, is to use the opportunity of the Joint Ministerial Council when all the governments come to London to promote their wares, to promote the opportunities for investment to an international business audience. So these are the sorts of things that we can help to do, help to facilitate. But there's no golden key, there's no easy way. If there were, we would have used it. It's a matter of promoting awareness of the opportunities and also helping the government of Anguilla to be able to create a business-friendly environment, to get the balance of regulation and taxation and so forth right, so that business can come and can flourish.
One of the few assets that Angola can rightly lay claim to is its territorial boundaries to the north, where it's virtually untapped in terms of fishing, deep sea fishing, and what comes with it. Is there anything in place to assist Anguillan and Angolan government to develop this asset as an alternative to our financial services and tourism?
Yeah, we've been talking with a number of the territories about the opportunities to grow a fishing industry, to get expertise in terms of how much you have a domestic fishing industry and how much you license others to fish your waters, and then you get economic benefit from that. There's quite a lot of balances to be struck, and of course also protecting the environment, so fishing in a sustainable way. So we have expertise that we've been sharing with a number of the territories, and that is a conversation we're very happy to continue with Anguilla to see how best to exploit those opportunities.
Mr. Hayes, in the release just ahead of your arrival, we saw that it said you would spend considerable time with the Chief Minister.
Yes.
What have you discussed with the Chief Minister?
Well, we've had wide-ranging discussions. I mean, obviously, it's a private conversation, so I'm not going to repeat the detail. But I've met the Chief Minister on a number of occasions in the past. We've had a very good, constructive engagement. Of course, we don't always agree. That's the nature of life. But we've had a very constructive engagement, which I've welcomed. I've been talking to him about the G8 tax and transparency initiatives that the UK has been pursuing. We've talked about the fiscal framework for sustainable development. He's also talked to me about the concerns of the Anguillan people, the concerns of his government, and the issues around good governance. But also he's talked a lot about his personal memories of Anguilla, his history, of course the revolution and so forth. So he's been a great source of information, not just about the issues affecting Anguilla today, but also helped to set it in a broader context because of course his huge experience of life on Anguilla.
I'm keen to know the exact purpose of the visit, because when I spoke to the Chief Minister this morning, he gave me the impression that he didn't have really a one-on-one with you, that you traveled together, you visited the medical school, the Albina Lake Hodge Comprehensive School, but he hasn't been able to have a one-on-one with you. So,
yeah, well, we sat together in the car all yesterday morning as we went around, so we talked a lot. And we're meeting. And we're meeting again shortly. But as I say, we've met on a number of occasions in the past, so we've had very regular dialogue. We invited the Chief Minister has been very involved in arranging the programme and suggesting what I might do, and so I think he seemed very happy with the programme as it was arranged. We were certainly very happy. Always would have been nice to have had more time to do more things. To answer your specific question about the purpose of my visit, I'm sitting in London with responsibility for our relationship with the overseas territories. And of course I get briefing from the team in London, from the governor's offices, and I meet the chief ministers and other ministers as they come through London. And of course many territories have a local representative in London as well who I meet. But there is no substitute for coming yourself and seeing yourself, the people, the issues, the environment, and getting a feel for those issues, and particularly, as I said yesterday in a number of meetings, to get a feel for the emotions. Because, if people are upset about something, or if people are worried about something, that doesn't always make it onto the page. The page talks about economic expansion, it talks about airport development, port development, educational development, but it doesn't capture the emotions. And I think it's only when you visit and you talk to people and you listen to people that you get a sense of the emotions that are behind that. And it's important to understand that.
What sense did you get of the emotions?
Well, I think the prolonged recession in Anguilla, as in many parts of the world, the prolonged recession is really difficult for communities, for individuals, for families to deal with. Because, of course, we've had boom and bust before. We've had recessions before. The problem, what is different with this, is it seems to be going on for so long, and the recovery looks to be pretty slow at best. There's no sense that suddenly, another year it'll all be over. Because we had the whole globe, the whole world had decades of essentially living beyond our means. And that's not going to be solved overnight. We overextended in the banking system, took on too much debt, took on too much risk. Governments around the world, and indeed families around the world, became too reliant on debt, And then when the global banking crisis happened, there's become a reckoning. And that's uncomfortable, that people realise that this is not something that's going to be solved quickly. It's going to be a long, hard process to build ourselves, to build the economies out, both at the country level, at a business level, and at individual family levels. And it came over to me very clearly, talking to the community meeting last night, that people are worn down by this. They're sort of exhausted by it. They're unemployment, lack of job opportunities, and we're seeing that around the world. You'll see on the TV screens, rioting in capitals around Europe and high levels of youth unemployment, which is really.
There was no reassurance you could give them.
Well, I think the reassurance is first of all to acknowledge the suffering that people are feeling. I think that's important to do that. It's important to say we're not blasé about it. We're not pretending everything's fine. We understand that people are suffering. And that's important to do that. And it's important to say that, and it's important to listen to people's concerns. The reassurance I can give you is that not only are we not ignoring it, but also we are looking with the government of Anguilla to try to find a way to help you grow your way out of it. And that's, as I've said earlier, that's not going to be quick and it's not going to be easy. If it were easy, we would have done it. But we are working with you right across the board, looking at building up educational standards so that the young Anguillians are equipped to get the jobs of the future. Looking at how I mentioned about promoting what Anguilla has to offer for potential investors. So you start to get investors who may not be very familiar with Anguilla thinking about maybe there's an opportunity there. What are the assets of Anguilla that we could be promoting better? We've been working with the government about communication, particularly digital communication. You will understand this very well from the media, that a lot of the way that people get information, ordinary individuals, business people get information, is changing. They're going on to social media. Governments need to be good, tourist offices need to be good at promoting themselves on social media, digital media. And that's something we're working with the government and helping to equip the public service to be able to get into that game, to be able to promote these messages, to be able to correct misperceptions, and to get their story heard. So there's all of these sorts of things on education, on good governance, on awareness of Anguilla and what it has to offer that we are working with the government on. But as I say, this is not going to be a quick fix. We've got to work at it. And crucially, our role is not to do it for the government of Anguilla, but to help the government of Anguilla to do it for itself.
Where are you in the chain of command? Do governors report to you? Or
Yeah.
Is that the case?
Yeah.
Is the former governor, Mr. Harrison, going to be a part of your administration? You got the impression that it might be.
No, I don't think so. He's doing some short-term projects, not dealing with Anguilla. He's doing some short-term projects for a few weeks with us, but I think he'll be going on to another diplomatic service assignment.
Okay, Mr. Here, one of the things that Anguillans are talking about is the whole issue of constitutional reform.
Yeah.
And the fact that the present constitution is hopelessly outdated and not suited to the needs of Anguillans. How much support are you offering the government in terms of developing a modern and new constitution? Because for some time now, there have been a number of ongoing discussions, but we haven't seemed to arrive at an agreement point as to what a new constitution should be like.
Yeah, well, we went through, over the last decade, we went through a process of updating many of the constitutions of the overseas territories, which was a negotiation, a discussion between the territory governments and the UK government. So that's something that we have done, and we have absolutely no problem about having further discussion about constitutions and whether they're fit for purpose. And of course the position set out in the white paper last year, and it's something that's been a consistent position of the UK government, is that the current arrangement is a voluntary arrangement. There is no fixed requirement on your side or on our side. It's a voluntary arrangement that we've entered into, and so of course, if one side or other feels that it's no longer appropriate, then we're happy to discuss that. We have had these discussions about constitutional change in the territories. We're not closed to further discussion, I think our feeling is that sometimes talk about constitutional change is actually a cipher for other issues, and I think it's important to be clear what is the problem we're trying to address, rather than start from the position of saying let's change the constitution. I think we need to focus on what are the problems that we want to address, and then let's work out the best way to do that.
Which comes to a very fundamental question of status. Just this week we had a statement from the Decolonization Committee of the United Nations approving the whole elimination process of colonialism. Now I know the British government is not using the word colonialism now, but the relationship is still a colonial relationship in the eyes of many people who look at it seriously. And British officials contend all the time that the constitution is fit for purpose. It's a colonial constitution as it is. So it would be fit for purpose from a British point of view. From people who want to be pursuing self-determination, it doesn't fit. So the question is, are you in a position to help prepare that process for independence, if you wish?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. We've said that very clearly in the white paper of last year. Let me just answer your question. We don't accept the Decolonisation Committee as a valid forum anymore. We see it as an outdated. We see it as well. Okay, let me answer your question. We don't see that as a valid forum. The crucial difference, the key difference between a colonial relationship and the sort of relationship we have is that this is a voluntary relationship. We have said it consistently, and we said it most recently with the white paper signed off by the Prime Minister last year, published around the world, which said it is a voluntary arrangement, and that if a territory decides, and if it is a properly voiced view of the people, not just one or two people, but if it is, on the basis of a referendum, that a territory decide that they want to become independent, that we have committed ourselves to help you do that.
Are you saying that people volunteer to be colonists?
I'm saying that the current arrangement is a voluntary one. And so if the people of Anguilla decide that they don't want to be an overseas territory of the UK, we have committed publicly to helping you to become independent. Now, the point is, of course, that as I go around the territories, including Anguilla, people feel that, of course, they like having a British passport. They like the sort of support that comes from being an overseas territory of the UK. But as the white paper made clear, there are obligations on both sides. Where territories have got into real trouble, as we saw in Turks and Caicos a few years ago, where territories have got into real trouble, we, the UK, the British taxpayer, has had to spend huge amounts of money to help that territory get out of that trouble. Where Montserrat was destroyed by a volcano, hurricane and then a volcano, we have and we continue to spend huge amounts of money. So that's the obligation on our side. But if the territory decided to become independent, we give overseas aid to independent countries, but we would not take on the sort of long-term commitments, financial, political commitments that we make to the overseas territories if they were not overseas territories. But if the people of Anguilla decide to become independent, and that's a properly voiced view of the people, the majority of the people, then we would help you to become independent.
Let me just go back to your visit here. You visited a number of institutions, community college, comprehensive school. You also held talks with police, fire, prison. What were some of the areas that you discussed with them? And the second part of the question would be, what were some of your findings after having visited all these institutions?
Yeah. A key theme across all of these institutions is that they need more resource. They want more resource to do more. I was very impressed with the level of commitment in all of these areas where people are trying to do the best they can, but they want more resource. And as with any government, no government has the problem of too much money and not enough to spend it on. And that's the same with Anguilla, and one of the challenges is how do you support all these areas to meet the aspirations, to meet the goals that they would like to reach. So there is an issue about resource, and one of the things that we're talking to the government of Anguilla about is helping to make sure that where there is funding available, whether that's from the Caribbean Development Bank or the European Union, that we help the government of Anguilla to get that funding to support these sorts of public services like education and health and so forth. The other thing that struck me was that in all of these cases there's been substantial support from the UK. We built a new wing of the prison. We're supporting the training of the police and the equipment of the police, helping them to do their job. We supported the community college. We gave a substantial chunk of money to this community college. So in each of these cases we have been helping, and they are very keen to continue that relationship. It goes back to your earlier question. They like the fact that they can get training courses in the UK, that we support that, where we're supporting scholarships and so forth for people to establish those links. So there was a very strong sense of appreciation of the connection to their equivalents in the UK, whether that's British police training facilities or fire service training facilities and so forth. We have some prison officers who are going to the UK for training courses over the next few months. So there was a lot of appreciation for the value of that connection. But as always, there was a hope and a desire to do more and to get more resource and to get more facilities in order to do a better job.
Okay, my final question has to do with the budget. Government is actually preparing its 2014 budget as we speak.
Yeah.
Will there be any budgetary aid from the UK government to assist the government in balancing its budget for 2014?
We've made a commitment for £3 million, which I think is 12 million EC dollars, as capital infrastructure spend for this year. Now I know that's it's a modest amount of money considering the number of infrastructure projects that you need, the number of capital projects that you need to fund. But I think that's an important. Times are tight, and in times of austerity, the fact that we've been able to do that, I think, is important. So that's the key bit of budgetary aid we're providing. But it's a challenge for the government, as it is governments around the world, to come up with a balanced budget. And as you and I and any business and any government, you have to decide how much money you've got to spend, and and make sure you don't spend more money than you have. And I think it's going to be difficult. There are lots of demands on the government of Anguilla to commit funding, but you have to decide, can you afford it?
Do you have a particular view on how the government is managing its public finances?
Well, we really welcomed the fact, I know that the fiscal framework has been controversial, but we welcome the fact that the government of Anguilla engaged with us on that and negotiated and agreed a deal. And I think that's important, because I think they understood, of course, they would like more freedom to manage the budget as they see fit, but the fact remains that we carry liabilities for the territory. British taxpayers carry liabilities for the territory if the economy is completely mismanaged. And I mentioned the example of Turks and Caicos Islands, where we had to put a $250 million loan guarantee in place, supported by British taxpayers, because of the way the economy had essentially collapsed. We don't want to be in that position. We need to persuade British taxpayers. We're doing everything we can to avoid them having to write such loan guarantees in the future. So the fiscal framework was a deal that was struck between us and the government of Anguilla to set some boundaries within which the government of Anguilla can manage its affairs, but agreed, for example, how much debt was really sustainable. And so we very much welcome the government of Anguilla's engagement with that and coming to an agreement on that. I think the next step, as well as dealing with the budget for this year, the next step has to be to set all of that into the context of a medium-term economic plan. Because again, like any of us, we can't just live from hand to mouth. You really need to think over the next 5 years, 10 years more, how are we going to manage the budget? And I think that's going to be the next challenge for the government of Anguilla, is to set this year's budget, next year's budget, into that sort of longer-term framework.
Share of taxes that they have been evading over the years. Will the UK government at some point in time be looking at persons who hold UK passports with the same intentions in mind.
I'm not aware of any suggestions that we might do that.